Like it or not, when our pollies are trying to sway votes, fear can be a great motivator. So when retirees are being told someone wants to take control of their pension, well, it's worth digging a little deeper.
There is a real possibility that the government will extend the cashless welfare card.
No pensioner has approached me and said, hey, we love the cashless debit card.
I've always been a big supporter of the cashless welfare card.
The cashless debit card.
All that hot air over cashless welfare. So what is a cashless welfare card? Basically, instead of welfare payments landing in your bank account, some of it lands on a government-issued debit card, which only works at participating stores and can't be used to buy things like alcohol or for gambling. Here's a quick demo.
So we go on there. I'm going to do it on the side or?
On the top, on the side.
Various cashless welfare cards have been used in the Northern Territory for more than a decade in a bid to tackle serious social issues facing some remote communities. From 2014, the federal government expanded their use with trial programs across largely Indigenous communities in South Australia, WA and Queensland.
There is no evidence that compulsory, broad-based income management works.
It's tough but necessary, and it matters and it makes a difference.
It creates stigma around it, there's embarrassment around it, there's a lot of shame that goes with this card.
If I'm ensuring that 1 kid, 10 kids, 50 kids are getting fed every single week and getting the fundamentals of life, I'm willing to have the fight.
It's not something that politicians particularly want to talk about. Partly it's because they believe that there's not a lot of votes in social security. It is predominantly used in Indigenous communities, in regional communities, and not in mainstream Australia.
But imagine the outrage if someone tried to pull that same trick on pensioners.
Labor will abolish the cashless debit card. The government will keep it, and they've talked about expanding it.
Jim Chambers, good old sneaky Jim. He's the one who's been telling the lies.
Labor seizing on these comments from the would-be Health Minister Anne Ruston 2 years ago.
So do you plan to make it compulsory at some point?
Well, I'm not going to preempt that. We're seeking, as I said, to put all income management onto the universal platform, which is the cashless debit card.
In 2020, during this term of this parliament, this minister said this.
The Labor Party is ringing up people, sending out brochures, writing to pensioners and scaring them that there'd be some suggestion that our government would be applying the debit card to pensioners. It's just simply not true.
Morrison has a point. Anne Ruston was talking about bringing everyone currently on income management programs, some of which are voluntary, onto the same platform, namely cashless debit. She wasn't talking about moving all welfare recipients, including pensioners, onto cashless debit cards against their will. Still, Labor reckons the age pension is a form of restrictable payment, and as long as the legislative loophole remains, so does the danger to pensioners.
The Prime Minister, during the course of this term, in September 2019, said that the cashless debit card commended itself to wider application.
A stretch? Sure, but a successful scare campaign doesn't need much.
Scare campaigns always start with a tiny little nugget of truth, and Anne Ruston's comments gave Labor the opening it wanted to be able to launch this campaign.
And if you're a fan of confected fear and loathing, don't worry, there'll be plenty more of that before May 21.
These aren't the only scare campaigns that we're going to be seeing in this election campaign, and that is because scare campaigns tend to take hold. They run on social media. That tends to be how politics in Australia runs at the moment. It's up to you whether it works or not.
Are we really wasting time in an election campaign talking about something that could happen because there's a loophole there just in case they might want to do that, but they're not going to? But there are actual proper issues that we could be discussing to give people a sense whether you are the party for them. Like, why are we talking about this garbage if it's not a thing?
Because it works. I should point out that loophole they're talking about, it's far from clear that loophole actually exists. The legal argument isn't even clear. But we saw it with Mediscare years ago. We saw it with the Coalition's anti-death taxes thing that Labor was never proposing. This is just how we do politics now, and it must work. It's the only reason you do it.
The thing that we were talking about with scare campaigns is that usually people aren't talking about it, right? Because it is that illicit thing that's happening, or at least the political parties are trying to make it illicit so that you don't really talk about it, it's just there and it's effective because no one's really talking about it.
We're not meant to be talking about that. Like the death taxes thing was really interesting. Did you hear anything about death taxes before the election?
No, not a thing, no.
And it was only in the aftermath you had coalition people coming out and sort of going, that death taxes thing killed us. And we're like, what happened? And it was all just social media. We're not meant to talk about it on shows like this. It's targeted at very particular people. And
is it people who either aren't across politics terribly much, could be different language speaking? Is it supposed to be designed for those kind of people?
Imagine if you're a pensioner and something turns up on your Facebook feed or in your letterbox or whatever, in selected seats where they reckon this will tip it, and you just get that.
But that is so underhanded and gross.
Yes.
And you wonder why, well, no, you don't wonder, but people wonder why politicians just are so on the nose with people. It's this kind of crap. You know, just talk about something that people actually care about and don't try and undermine people and trick them into voting for you.
But would that win?
Oh,
Yeah,
God,
see,
could it win, please?
I think you're right, but at what point is it on us not to reward it? That's the question I can't resolve.
Also, I think there's something in it. You know what those pensioners are like? They're always ducking off to the bottle-o to get their beef-eater gin with their purple rinses. Gotta lock that stuff down.
You're really not planning a career in politics.
You would do well. I'd vote for you with that kind of honesty.
More than that would come back to haunt me, Walid.